Boundless Immigration News, Weekend Review, December 2nd, 2022. ICE mistakenly releases personal data on 6,252 migrants. ICE accidentally released the personal information of more than 6,000 immigrants in detention on its website on Monday. The data leak could put the lives of migrants, many of whom fled persecution in their home countries, at risk. The information, which included names, birth dates, nationalities, and detention location, was visible on the ICE website for 5 hours before the agency took it down. GOP states ask court to keep Title 42. 15 Republican-led states filed a motion in federal court last week asking that a COVID-era measure remain in place that allowed border authorities to turn away migrants at the southern border on public health grounds. Earlier this month, a federal judge struck down the public health measure known as Title 42, calling it arbitrary and capricious and in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. The GOP states, which include Arizona, Kansas, and Texas, said that terminating the rule will lead to an influx of migrants that will directly harm and impose financial burden on those states involved in hosting them. Russian asylum seekers detained at higher rates in U.S. A growing number of anti-war activists and dissidents are fleeing Russia and claiming asylum at the U.S. southern border. But instead of authorities releasing them to await a court date, a disproportionate amount of Russians are being sent to immigration detention centers that more closely resemble prisons, according to a New York Times investigation. While ICE doesn't release data on the nationalities of asylum seekers, immigration lawyers say Russian migrants appear to have been detained at higher rates in recent months. Supreme Court hears arguments over Biden immigration enforcement policy. The U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments Tuesday about a Biden administration policy that restricts arrests of undocumented immigrants to those deemed a threat to public safety or national security. Earlier this month, a federal judge in Texas ruled that the policy limiting arrests was illegal, siding with Republican officials in Louisiana and Texas who argued that the Biden administration lacked the authority to issue the directive. The court order leaves ICE agents with no clear guidance on who they can and cannot deport and prompted the Biden administration to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. That's it for this week's top headlines. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Boundless. Thanks for watching.